Welcome back, everybody. Eagle Countdown, and we play in each of these segments. We're playing some of the great promises kept and explanations of policy issues. Hope you're interested in those, and we'll be posting them up on social media. And people that want to learn more, when you go to eaglecountdown.com, right in the center, there's a button that says Be an Eagle. Be an Eagle. If you click on that, you can see how to be a member of our organization and be a part of our team. And there's a lot to learn. We learn together a lot from the experts we talk to, but there's also a movement that we work on together to make sure that we're helping each other succeed wherever we are. You got Eagle leaders at the state level, local level, and of course at the federal level too. Our next guest is Christiana Holcomb. She's legal counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. I think most of our folks know Alliance Defending Freedom. It's the organization is in almost every corner of the country, helping to protect the citizens of our country, and there's lots of challenges to it. She's been involved though, and we asked her to be on today to talk with us on the Eagle Countdown, because one of the issues very few organizations will take on is the transgender issues, the cases, the decisions of the Supreme Court. The Trump administration on the policy issue has stood up a number of ways. You can tell us about them. We talk a lot about promises kept here. I'm not sure the president said on the campaign trail about the transgender issue. Might have, but I know when he got in, he was like, we're not going to let this happen to our communities. But it's a huge issue, and Christiana Holcomb has been co-counsel on two important cases that were having to do with beliefs, protecting beliefs of religious communities when it came to human sexuality. She herself was a lawyer, but we don't hold that against her at all. And so, Christiana, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
So, I remember I had on my radio show Abigail Schreier,
yes,
who wrote the book
Irreversible Damage.
Thank you. Irreversible Damage. It's upstairs on my shelf, and I always do this. I always forget the name. Irreversible Damage, about how the transgender movement, and she used the word, so I can use it quoting her. But then I did this on a radio show in Indiana. I got more complaints instantly. I said the transgenderism movement, it's like a cult. It's damaging our kids. And she wrote about it. She's a Wall Street Journal reporter. Very few people and organizations are wanting to say that. And around us are, especially she writes about girls targeted. So this issue, what's the status of this issue? Why is it people are afraid of it? How common is it now? How much is it intruding? Tell us a little bit about it.
Broad question. Yeah. So the transgender ideology is really permeating all levels of institutions across the country. And where I'm seeing it most acutely right now, and where I'm actually involved in a couple of cases litigating that question, is in the context of women's sports. So we all know Title IX was passed nearly 50 years ago to ensure that young women have equal athletic opportunities with males. And the only reason we have women's sports as a separate category is because of the physical differences between the sexes. Generally, there's a 10 to 20% performance advantage that males intrinsically have over comparably talented and trained female athletes. Well, unfortunately, athletic associations across the country are changing their policies to allow males to simply identify as girls and then to compete in and dominate women's sports. So this first came to my notice early last year when I saw a mom named Bianca Stanescu on national television saying, my daughter Selena is being forced to compete against male athletes and is losing advancement opportunities to state championships as a result. So we started digging in, we looked a little bit more deeply and recognized that the two male athletes in Connecticut.
That's the ones, these ones. Like
right.
They've won every award. They've won every race, right?
Swiped 15 women's state championship titles, which those used to be held by 9 individual girls, to really try to give you some context for just how startling it is for 2 individuals to hold that many medals. So
I know it was a broad question, sorry, but is it spreading? Is it pushing back? Are the courts, the Supreme Court had this decision, the Bostock decision, which didn't help in lots of ways and hurt in some ways. Maybe it wasn't definitive. There's some reason to think there'll be some more cases behind it that may be more favorable. But how big a problem is this?
I mean, I think it's an increasing problem all across the country. You have school districts that are changing bathroom policies. You have employers that are now being forced to treat gender identity as a protected class under the Bostock decision. You have school districts and athletic associations that are changing their policies to, again, allow males to just identify and then to compete and dominate in the girls category. So it's a growing and increasing and quickly spreading issue across the country. With really damaging effects, as you mentioned, particularly on young women. Women are the ones who lose with this transgender ideology.
What can you do? What I mean, my daughter is in a school system, and the conference said we're going to allow transgender athletes, so that my daughter's school dropped out of that and had to start, as an independent and plays private school and be. But what can people do if you're in a public school and there's not, either you can't afford it, don't want to, or there isn't options to go private or have your school system drop out? Your daughter's playing softball against. What are people's options?
Well, first and foremost, I want people to understand that the vast majority of the American public agrees with us.
Yeah.
So recent polling from July and August of this year show that 75 to 80% of Americans agree that it is not fair to allow males to come in and dominate women's sports. So first of all, recognize people agree with you. They just don't yet have the courage to say that. So courage begets courage. So it starts with you. So I would encourage parents to step up to their school administrators, their athletic association directors, demand change. These are your daughters. Secondly, you can file Title IX complaints with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. Recently, I want to say it was in August, the Office for Civil Rights actually made it very clear that it violates Title IX to allow males to come in and dominate women's sports, which is a huge victory for women. Make good use of that. File those Title IX complaints. And then certainly, I'd be happy to chat with you. There are situations across the country. We filed a couple of different lawsuits, but most importantly, make your voice heard.
Christiana Holcomb, Alliance Defending Freedom. What's the website again now?
adflegal.org.
adflegal.org. I didn't want to get it wrong. I know Rebecca, our DC director, has some comments and questions, but I don't want to let it slip by. The Trump administration, you talk about directionally promises kept in terms of our values. You mentioned Title IX. What other things has the Trump administration done to give our values some strength on this issue?
Sure. Well, specifically in the context of fairness in women's sports, I've been extremely heartened by the fact that the U.S. Department of Justice has filed statements of interest supporting female athletes, both in Connecticut and in Idaho. And Attorney General Barr himself signed the statement of interest in the state of Connecticut. So that was a huge, huge step forward. And then secondly, again, the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights has come out with a really clear statement that it violates Title IX to allow males to take opportunities away from young women in the context of athletics. So great step forward, but there's still a lot of work yet to be done.
Who runs that office in the Education Department? Is it a name that people should know or could know, or doesn't it matter?
So it actually just changed within the last few weeks.
So it's not, okay. Yeah. It's not. Rebecca, you had thoughts, comments?
Yes, you briefly alluded to Idaho, and earlier this year they passed a bill called the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which is supported by the Trump administration. Could you give our audience a little bit of detail on the protections that the bill provides? We have leaders all across the country, and they might be interested in getting this legislation passed in their state.
Yes, absolutely. So the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, Idaho was the first state in the country to pass one of these laws, and it does a really simple thing. It says that if you have a sports team that's designated for women or girls, only biological females can compete on that team. Ought to be uncontroversial. But of course, the ACLU has challenged that.
They sued on it already?
They have, and Alliance Defending Freedom, on behalf of 2 collegiate athletes, has intervened in that case, and we're taking it on up to the Ninth Circuit.
Federal court, it's in the federal courts. Did the federal court enjoin it, or anything?
The federal court did put a pause on the law for now, but it's not a final adjudication, and we have appealed that to the Ninth Circuit.
Okay, good question. Thank you. Yeah, we are, one of our great leaders is in Idaho, Tammy Nichols. She's a state in the state legislature, so she's talked about this before. Sorry, Rebecca, go ahead.
Briefly, you mentioned some legislation that was filed today. Can you give the bill number and talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I wish I could give the bill number. I'm
okay.
Unfortunately unprepared for that because it just dropped. So earlier this evening, Senator Loeffler actually dropped a Protection for Women and Girls in Sports Act. And it's a bill in the federal government that does a really simple thing. It just clarifies that under Title IX, sex protections are for female athletes, and it ensures, again, that no biological males can come in and take away those opportunities that have been set aside for women and girls. So we're really encouraged by not just Senator Loeffler, but her co-sponsors as well, taking this important step forward to protect the future of young women across the country.
Alliance Defending Freedom, adflegal.org. Questions from folks that are watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. One of the questions, Christiana, are school administrators and coaches fighting back against this problem of males competing in girls' sports or not? Is it a school administration thing? Is it a who's? Because I think I agree with you. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Tampa Bay to speak to the Tampa, what was it called? The Tiger Tampa Club or something. It's just kind of a tradition that they have 4 speakers, 4 panelists, and a big crowd of 250 people. You talk about an issue really quickly. It was really clever. Mm-hmm. And I was one of them, but I was the only one who was against the ERA. And so the other 3 were all leftists. And I'll put aside all the things except to say at one point I said, well, the ERA would make it so there'd be no girls' sports. You'd have, and that turned the crowd. A whole bunch of people were like, yeah, a guy stood up. He said, I'm for abortion rights. But why are you doing this to my girls' sports? That's what he said. So the public's with us on this, I think. But so why aren't school administrators? Why aren't coaches fighting back?
That's a great question. I can't speak for school administrators across the country. What I have seen in the state of Connecticut, though, indicates that they're just fearful. They're afraid of being labeled bigoted and transphobic. They're afraid of getting sued. But what they don't understand is they are violating Title IX, federal law, putting their Title IX funding in jeopardy by failing to comply with federal law. And well, to make matters worse, they're harming young women and discriminating against girls in the process. So I think, we need to have people come alongside them, educate them about what the law says, what young women, the opportunities that they should be presented with, and hold them accountable for complying with federal law.
I think we should do it. We should name it. We should call it like the Princeton decision. Like when Princeton said, we're racist, and then the Department of Education was like, oh, you are? We'll come investigate you. So anybody who says, let the boys come in and play with the girls, they should go, oh, okay, you're discriminating. Here's a Title IX investigation. Just go ahead and sua sponte, start investigating all these places. But, again, that's probably... one of our folks said, thank you for mentioning Title IX. There's no way that this should be allowed under Title IX. I think, we, conservatives, not all of us thought Title IX was a great idea. But once you are where you are, you need to use the tools you have.
The law of the land now.
The law of the land now. And I think that's, you're not supposed to, I don't want you to talk about the election, but I do want to talk about the confirmation of judges. You're a lawyer. Obviously these cases are important to you. This justice confirmation, it looks like the president has indicated some of the leading candidates are women that may be nominated, very, very qualified people. Do you have any thoughts on the confirmation, the importance of it, how you see it, what the world looks like with a 6-3 sort of majority? We don't know that it's a majority, but what your thoughts do you have?
Well, unfortunately, I can't really comment on that either.
Okay.
Obviously, as an attorney and as an organization that practices before the high court. But what I will say is we look forward to seeing a justice appointed that will uphold the Constitution as it was originally intended and applies the law in an even-handed and according to its original intent of the as drafted. But yeah, this is something that could shape the court for generations to come. And so we look forward to seeing where this goes
Didn't
next.
want to cut you off anymore?
ADF was representing some students in Connecticut, and I know you were specifically working with them. Can you give an update on where that lawsuit stands?
Yes. So in February of this year, we filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of 4 incredibly courageous female athletes. I mean, can you imagine suing your own school district and being public, the face of a transgender issue? I mean, they have so much courage. I'm so proud of them. We're still in the very early phases. COVID slowed things down naturally, but we're still in the early phases of the litigation. We have a matter pending before the Second Circuit, but we do hope to get some resolution, whether on a temporary injunctive basis, for these young women before they start their winter track season.
We got another comment from somebody who said, our public school district chose to get a unisex bathroom instead of a weight room for the athletes because they're worried about, all the unintended effects of this mindset in the school as well. Christiana Holcomb, Alliance Defending Freedom, adflegal.org. There's a ton of resources there. We'll watch these cases. Thank you for spending some time with our folks on Eagle Countdown to highlight these issues, and we wish you well in your work. And there's not enough people, as you said, courage begets courage, talking about this because they do immediately call you a bigot. When I said on the radio, an Indiana radio station, that it was I didn't say it was a cult. I said it's like a cult. And immediately on the host said, on the Facebook comments, they said, who's this bigot you brought on? They were saying that kind of language. That's the way to scare you out of the public square. So thank you to Alliance Defending Freedom for being up in that public square in that way. We appreciate you very much. We're going back to...